Welcome back to HOA boardroom battles. She loved towing because it came with instant consequences. I stepped outside and saw a warning sticker slapped on my window, and Karen yelled that the next sticker came with a tow on site. "You just earned yourself a fee," Anne shouted from across the lot. I froze on my front step. My sedan sat in my assigned spot, same as always. A bright orange sticker covered half my driver's side window. Ann Roberts stood 10 feet away, portable folding sign stand propped beside her, phone aimed at my car like she was documenting a crime scene. She wore a gray cardigan with the hood up even though the morning was barely cool, and her pink visor sat crooked on her head. The wind whipped her black hair across her face. "I am parked in my spot," I said. She stepped closer, jabbing her phone at the windshield. "Your registration sticker is not visible. That is a violation of Stonehaven Community Association Parking Policy, Section 12.4. I work early mornings as an auto mechanic, and I take care of my disabled sibling at home. Any disruption to my car or my access means I cannot get to work and I cannot get my sibling to appointments. The stakes here were not theoretical." "The sticker is right there," I said, pointing to the corner of my windshield where the little square sat exactly where it had been for 6 months. "Not visible from the street," Anne said. "If I have to walk up to your car to see it, it does not count." "That is not in the rules." "It is now." She smiled, the kind of smile that made my stomach drop. "Emergency Parking Enforcement Amendment, approved last night. I sent the email this morning." I pulled out my phone and opened my inbox. Sure enough, a message from Ann Roberts, timestat 6:14 a.m., subject line updated parking compliance standards. I had been asleep. The message was 4 paragraphs of dense legalese that boiled down to one thing. Any vehicle without a clearly visible registration sticker would be subject to immediate tow with no warning. "You sent this 2 hours ago," I said. "Effective immediately," she said. "That is how emergency amendments work. If you want mercy, move somewhere without an HOA." I felt my jaw tighten. Anne was communications director for the Stonehaven Community Association, which meant she controlled every email blast, every newsletter, every policy announcement that hit our inboxes. Bend, Oregon was full of master plan communities where parking rules were treated like sacred law, and Stonehaven was one of the worst. Anne had been escalating enforcement for months, hitting people with guest parking violations, fire lane citations, overnight street parking bans, and fees that appeared out of nowhere. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now you get 72 hours to fix it," she said. "After that, any vehicle in violation is tow on site. No second notice. Tow on site." She said it like she was announcing a weather forecast. I walked over to my car and peered at the registration sticker. It was a small square in the lower corner of the windshield, exactly where the DMV instructions said to place it. You could see it fine if you were standing next to the car. From the street, maybe you had to squint, but it was there. "This is insane," I said. "This is compliance," Anne said. "Your paperwork is cute, mine has a letterhead." She pulled a portable thermal printer from her bag and held it up like it was a badge. "I can print a violation on the spot. I can authorize a tow with one phone call. What do you have?" I did not chase her accusations, because I already had the receipts. I had been gathering evidence for weeks. Security camera footage, email timestamps, meeting recordings. I just was not ready to show my hand yet. "I will move the sticker," I said. "Smart choice," Anne said. She turned and walked back toward her townhouse, dragging the folding sign stand behind her. I stood there in the wind, staring at the orange warning sticker on my window. A ratchet strap was pulled tight across my front tire. I had not noticed it at first. It was not a boot, just a strap, but the message was clear. Anne wanted me to know she could immobilize my car anytime she wanted. I peeled the warning sticker off and got in my car. My hands were shaking. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of hydraulic whining and a diesel engine idling in the parking lot. I looked out my window and saw a tow truck backed up to my sedan, the wheel lift already hooked under the rear axle. Anne stood next to the driver, phone out, filming everything. I ran outside. "What are you doing?" "Tow on site," Anne said. "Your sticker still is not visible." "I moved it yesterday. It is right there." "Not good enough," she said. "I walked a lot this morning and your vehicle did not meet the updated visibility standard." The tow operator, a middle-aged guy with a reflective vest and a cigarette tucked behind his ear, glanced at me but did not say anything. He just kept working the controls. "You said I had 72 hours, I said. "Emergency override," Ann said. "Board president signed off on it last night. I have the authorization right here." She pulled a folded policy sheet from her cardigan pocket and shoved it in my face. I could see printed lines and a signature at the bottom, but no details were readable. "This is my assigned spot," I said. "I am a resident. You cannot just tow me." "I can and I am," Ann said. "If you want to dispute it, you can file an appeal with the board. Hearing is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I felt my chest tighten. I had a notary appointment booked for that afternoon, and missing it would delay my sworn statements for weeks. I needed to get my evidence package notarized so I could file a formal complaint with the management company. If my car got towed, I would miss the appointment, and my entire timeline would collapse. "Stop," I said to the driver. "I need to talk to your supervisor." The driver looked at Anne. "She is the supervisor," he said. "No, I mean your company supervisor." He shrugged. "Lady called us, we tow. That is the contract." I pulled out my phone and called the number on the side of the truck. A woman answered on the third ring. "This is Cascade Towing. I am standing in the Stonehaven community parking lot, and your driver is towing my car without cause. I am a resident. This is my assigned spot, and I am current on all my HOA fees." "Hold on," she said. "I heard papers rustling. What is the address?" I gave her my address and my license plate number. "Okay," she said. "I have the authorization here. Vehicle parked in violation of community standards. Tow requested by Communications Director Ann Roberts, approved by Board President this morning." "The authorization is fraudulent," I said. "I moved my registration sticker yesterday. This is retaliation." "Sir, we just execute the contract. If you have a dispute, you need to take it up with your HOA." She hung up. Anne was smiling again. Like I said, paperwork with a letterhead. The driver finished hooking the car and started lifting the rear wheels off the ground. The hydraulic whine got louder. I could see my neighbor across the lot, a woman named Claire, who rented one of the townhouses and worked as a tenant advocate. She was standing on her porch watching. I caught her eye and she nodded, then pulled out her phone and started filming. I stepped in front of the truck. "Stop. I am not moving until I get a valid reason for this tow." The driver sighed. "Sir, I do not want to call the cops, but if you block the truck, I will have to." "Call them," I said. Anne laughed. "Go ahead. Let him call the police. They will ask to see my authorization. I will show them the signature, and you will get cited for obstruction." I did not move. The driver got back in the cab and reached for his radio. Before he could key it, Claire jogged over. "Hey," she said, "I am recording this. If you tow his car without a valid violation, that is theft." The driver looked at Anne. "Is this valid?" "Absolutely," Anne said. "I have the board signature right here." Claire looked at me. "Do you have proof you are allowed to park here?" I pulled out my phone and showed her my parking permit record in the HOA portal. Assigned spot, current through next year. She turned to the driver. "You are towing a resident from their assigned spot based on a visibility standard that was invented yesterday. That is not a legitimate violation." The driver hesitated. He looked at Anne, then at me, then at Claire. Finally, he lowered the wheel lift and unhooked my car. "I am not getting in the middle of this," he said. "You all figure it out." Anne stepped forward, her face red. "You just violated your contract. I am reporting this to your supervisor." "Go ahead," the driver said. He climbed back in the cab and drove off. Anne turned to me. "You think you won? You just made this so much worse." She stormed off, dragging her folding sign stand behind her. Claire touched my arm. "You need to file a complaint. Today." "I know," I said. "I have a notary appointment in 2 hours." "Good. Get everything documented. She is going to escalate." She was right. That afternoon, after I got my sworn statements notarized, I came home to find another orange sticker on my window. This one said guest vehicle, unauthorized overnight parking, tow authorization pending. My car had not moved since the morning. I was not a guest. This was pure harassment. I peeled it off and went inside. My sibling was in the living room watching TV. They looked up when I walked in. "Everything okay?" they asked. "HOA stuff," I said. "Nothing you need to worry about." But I was worried. If Anne kept escalating, it was only a matter of time before she found a way to actually tow my car, and that would be a crisis. I could not afford to miss work, and my sibling could not afford to miss their medical appointments. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I had been collecting evidence for weeks, ever since Anne started ramping up enforcement. Security camera footage from my front door that showed the exact placement of my registration sticker and the timestamps of Anne walking the lot with her phone. Email records showing that the emergency parking amendment was sent out at 6:14 a.m. with no prior notice. Meeting minutes from the board session where the amendment was supposedly approved. But I also had something Anne did not know about. 2 weeks earlier, I had filed a public records request with the City of Bend, asking for any documentation related to Stonehaven Community Association tow authorizations on public streets. The city had responded with a letter that said the HOA was operating an unauthorized tow scheme. The streets inside Stonehaven were technically public roads maintained by the city, and the HOA had no legal authority to authorize tows on public property. The tow contract was only valid for private lots owned by the association. That letter was my trump card. I had not mentioned it to anyone yet because I wanted to wait for the right moment. If I revealed it too early, Anne would find a way to spin it or bury it. But if I waited until she was fully committed to her tow scheme, the letter would blow up her entire operation. I just had to survive long enough to deploy it. The next day I got an email from Anne. Subject line, parking compliance hearing, mandatory attendance. The email said I was required to appear at a special session of the Parking and Traffic Committee to address multiple violations. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. I forwarded the email to Claire. "Is this normal?" She called me 5 minutes later. "No, this is not normal. Parking hearings are supposed to be part of the regular board meeting, not a special session. She is isolating you. What do I do?" "Show up, bring your evidence, and do not let her control the narrative. And bring a witness. I will come with you." The hearing was held in the clubhouse conference room, a cramped space with a folding table and bad fluorescent lighting. Anne sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 other board members I barely recognized. One was an older man who looked half asleep. The other was a woman in her 50s who kept glancing at her phone. Claire sat next to me in the back row. I had a folder full of printed evidence and my phone ready to record. Anne banged a gavel on the table. "This hearing is called to order. We are here to address multiple parking violations by the resident at Unit 42. She looked at me. "You have been cited for failure to display a visible registration sticker, unauthorized overnight parking, and obstruction of a lawful tow operation." "Those citations are false," I said. Anne held up a hand. "You will have a chance to respond. First, I am going to present the evidence." She pulled out a stack of printed photos. These images were taken over the last 2 weeks. They show your vehicle parked in your assigned spot with no visible registration sticker from the street. I leaned forward. The sticker is visible. You just have to look at the windshield. From the street, Anne repeated. The policy requires visibility from the street. That policy was invented 3 days ago, I said. The policy was approved by emergency amendment, Anne said. That is within the board's authority. Where is the documentation of that approval, I asked. Anne pulled out another folded sheet. Right here. Board president's signature, dated 2 days ago. I need to see the meeting minutes, I said. The minutes will be posted after they are finalized, Anne said. When will that be? When I finish writing them, she said. Claire spoke up from the back. That is a conflict of interest. You cannot write the minutes of a meeting that authorized your own enforcement action. Anne glared at her. This hearing is for residents only. You need to leave. I am here as a witness, Claire said. You are not on the agenda, Anne said. There is no agenda, Claire said. This is a kangaroo court. The older board member coughed. Anne, maybe we should table this and bring it to the regular meeting. No, Anne said. We are finishing this today. I pulled out my folder and set it on the table. I have security camera footage showing the exact placement of my registration sticker and the timestamps of your enforcement walks. I have email records showing you sent the policy change at 6 in the morning with no prior notice. And I have sworn statements from 2 neighbors confirming that my sticker has been in the same place for 6 months. Anne waved a hand. None of that is relevant. The policy says visible from the street. Your sticker is not visible from the street. That is a violation. Then every car in this community is in violation, I said. That is not true, Anne said. Yes, it is, Claire said. I walked the lot this morning. 80% of the cars have stickers in the same position as his. Are you going to tow all of them? Anne did not answer. I leaned forward. Why are you targeting me? I am not targeting anyone, Anne said. I am enforcing the rules. Then why did you try to tow my car 12 hours after I moved my sticker? Why did you put a guest vehicle sticker on my car when I am a resident? Why are you holding a special hearing instead of bringing this to the regular board meeting? Anne slammed her hand on the table. Because you are a problem. You question every policy. You file complaints. You waste everyone's time. If you do not like the rules, you can move. If this story is making your blood boil, smash that like button and subscribe for more HOA revenge tales, where the paperwork always wins. There it was, the real reason. Anne wanted me gone, and she was using parking enforcement to make my life miserable until I left. I took a breath. I did not chase your accusations, because I already had the receipts. But since you want to escalate, let me show you what I have been holding. I pulled out a printed copy of the city letter and slid it across the table. This is a response to a public records request I filed with the city of Bend 2 weeks ago. It states that the streets inside Stonehaven Community Association are public roads maintained by the city, and that your HOA has no legal authority to authorize tows on public property. Anne picked up the letter and read it. Her face went pale. Your tow contract, I continued, is only valid for private lots owned by the association. Every tow you have authorized on a public street is illegal. That includes the one you tried to do to my car 3 days ago. The room went silent. This is a procedural issue, Anne said. We can fix it. No, you cannot, Claire said. You have been authorizing illegal tows for months. That is theft. That is fraud. And now there is a paper trail. Anne stood up. This hearing is over. Not yet, I said. I am requesting that the evidence I just presented be read into the minutes so it becomes official. Anne shook her head. I am not putting that in the minutes. Then I will file a formal complaint with the management company and attach a copy of this letter, I said. And I will send a copy to every resident in this community so they know what you have been doing. Anne grabbed her folder and walked out. The two other board members sat there, looking uncomfortable. "Is the hearing over?" the older man asked. "Yes," Claire said. "It is over." We left the clubhouse and walked back to my townhouse. Claire was grinning. "You just nuked her," she said. "I hope so," I said. But Anne was not done. 2 days later, I got a notice in the mail. It was a small claims filing. Ann Roberts versus me, alleging unpaid fines for parking violations totaling $800. The filing claimed I owed $300 for the sticker violation, $200 for obstruction of a tow operation, and $300 for unauthorized overnight parking. I called Claire. She just filed a lawsuit. "Of course she did," Claire said. "She is trying to force you into court and waste your time." "What do I do?" "Show up and bring everything. The city letter, the footage, the emails." She is going to lose. The court date was set for 3 weeks out, the same week as my notary appointment deadline. If I missed the notary appointment, my sworn statements would expire and I would have to start over. The timing was not a coincidence. Anne was squeezing me from every angle. But I had one more move. A neighbor named Miguel lived 2 doors down from me. He was a contractor who did HVAC work all over Bend, and he parked his work van in the guest lot every night. A few days after Anne filed the lawsuit, I saw a tow truck backed up to Miguel's van with the wheel lift engaged. Anne was standing next to the driver, phone out, filming. I ran over. Miguel was yelling at the driver in Spanish. The driver just shrugged and kept working the controls. "Anne, what are you doing?" I said. "Enforcing guest parking rules," she said. "Contractor vehicles are not allowed overnight." "Miguel is a resident," I said. "His van is a commercial vehicle," Anne said. "Commercial vehicles require a special permit." "Since when?" "Since the board meeting last week," Anne said. "New rule." Miguel turned to me. "I did not get any notice." "The notice was sent yesterday," Anne said. "You are doing this to punish me," I said. "I am doing this to maintain property values," Anne said. The driver lowered the van and unhooked it. "Same as before. I am not getting in the middle of this. You all figure it out." Anne screamed at him. "You are in breach of contract. I am reporting this to your supervisor." The driver drove off. Miguel looked at me. "What is going on?" "Anne is weaponizing the tow contract to harass people," I said. "She tried it on me last week." "What do we do?" Miguel asked. "We fight back," I said. That night I sat down with Claire and Miguel and we put together a plan. Miguel was willing to testify at the small claims hearing. Claire was willing to file a formal complaint with the management company. And I was willing to go public with the city letter. But we needed one more thing. We needed proof that Anne had altered the meeting minutes to cover up her illegal tow scheme. Claire knew someone who worked at the management company, a woman named Lisa who handled records requests for multiple HOAs in Bend. Claire reached out to Lisa and asked if she could pull the original draft of the Stonehaven board meeting minutes from 2 weeks ago before Anne finalized them. Lisa said she would check. 3 days later, Lisa called Claire back. She had the draft, and it was very different from the version Anne posted on the HOA portal. In the draft, there was no mention of an emergency parking amendment, no mention of a tow on-site policy, no mention of visibility standards. The draft minutes were about landscaping bids and pool maintenance. Anne had added the parking language after the meeting and backdated the approval. That was fraud. Claire sent me a copy of the draft. "This is your smoking gun," she said. "I know," I said. The small claims hearing was held at the Deschutes County Courthouse on a Thursday morning. I showed up with my folder, my phone, and a printed copy of the draft minutes. Claire and Miguel came with me as witnesses. Anne showed up with her folded policy sheets and her portable thermal printer. The judge was a middle-aged man with wire-rimmed glasses. He looked at the case file and sighed. "This is an HOA dispute?" "Yes, Your Honor," Ann said. "What is the claim?" "The defendant owes $800 in unpaid fines for multiple parking violations," Ann said. The judge looked at me. "Do you dispute the fines?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "The violations are fraudulent. The enforcement actions were retaliation for filing complaints. And the rules she is citing were invented after the fact." "Do you have evidence?" "I do," I said. The judge nodded. "Present it." I walked him through the timeline. The emergency amendment sent at 6:14 a.m. The tow attempt 12 hours later. The fraudulent guest parking sticker. The illegal tow authorizations on public streets. And finally, the altered meeting minutes. I handed him the city letter and the draft minutes. He read them both. Then he looked at Ann. "Did you alter the meeting minutes after the board meeting?" "I finalized them," Ann said. "That is my job as communications director." "Did you add language that was not discussed at the meeting?" Ann hesitated. "I added clarifications." "That is not what I asked," the judge said. "Your Honor, the parking policy was discussed informally," Ann said. "I just formalized it in the minutes." "Do you have a recording of the meeting?" "No," Ann said. "Why not?" "We do not record meetings," Ann said. The judge looked at me. "Do you have anything else?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "I have security camera footage showing that my registration sticker was visible at all times. I have email records showing that the policy change was sent with no prior notice. And I have witness testimony from 2 neighbors confirming that the enforcement actions were targeted and retaliatory." Claire and Miguel stood up. The judge waved them forward. Claire testified that she had witnessed the tow attempt and that the driver had unhooked my car after reviewing my parking permit. Miguel testified that Ann had tried to tow his contractor van the same week using a rule that did not exist until the day before. The judge took notes. Then he looked at Ann. "Do you have any response?" "Your Honor, these residents are trying to undermine legitimate HOA enforcement," Ann said. "The rules are clear. If they do not want to follow them, they can move." The judge closed his folder. "I am dismissing this case. The fines are not valid, the enforcement actions were retaliatory, and the altered meeting minutes suggest fraud. I am also recommending that the plaintiff be investigated by the HOA management company and that the tow contract be reviewed by the city." Ann stood up. "Your Honor, that is not fair." "The hearing is over," the judge said. We walked out of the courthouse. Miguel clapped me on the back. "You did it, man." "Not yet," I said. "We still have to make sure she does not do this to anyone else." That afternoon, I sent a detailed complaint to the Stonehaven Management Company, attaching the city letter, the draft minutes, the security footage, and the court transcript. I also sent a copy to every resident in the community via the HOA email list. Ann tried to block the email, but it was too late. Within an hour, my inbox was flooded with replies. Other residents who had been hit with fraudulent fines, other residents who had been threatened with tows, other residents who were afraid to speak up because Ann controlled the emails and the enforcement. The next morning, the management company called an emergency board meeting. Ann was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. The parking enforcement rules were suspended, and the tow contract was put under review. But Ann was not done fighting. 2 days later, I got a text from Claire. "Ann is trying to corner you. She is at the gas station at the edge of the subdivision. She has her phone out, and she is waiting for you." I drove over to the gas station lot. Sure enough, Ann was standing next to the air pump, phone raised, filming the entrance. I parked and got out. "What do you want, Ann?" "I want you to know that I am not done," she said. "You think you won? You ruined my reputation. You cost me my position. You turned the entire community against me. You did that to yourself, I said. No, she said. You did it by lying. You filed a fraudulent records request. You manipulated the city letter. You fabricated evidence. That is not true, I said. Prove it, she said. I already did, I said. In court. In front of a judge. With witnesses. Anne stepped closer. You think you are so smart. You think you have all the answers. But you do not know what I know. What do you know? I asked. I know the tow company is going to sue you, she said. I know the board is going to reverse the suspension and reinstate me. I know you are going to end up paying more in legal fees than you ever saved in fines. She was bluffing. I could see it in her face. If that is true, then why are you here? I asked. Because I want to see your face when it all falls apart, she said. I pulled out my phone and opened the email I had been saving. It was from the tow company supervisor, sent that morning. The email said the company had reviewed the evidence I submitted and had decided to refund all charges, void the tow authorizations, and cancel the HOA contract. I turned the phone so Anne could see it. The tow company just canceled your contract. Her face went white. They are also refunding every resident who was charged an invalid fee, I said, and they are cooperating with the city investigation. Anne grabbed the phone out of my hand. I snatched it back. You are lying, she said. Call him yourself, I said. She pulled out her own phone and dialed. I could hear the ringing on the other end. Then a voice. Cascade Towing. How can I help you? This is Ann Roberts, Stonehaven Community Association. I need to speak to the supervisor. Hold on. A minute later, a man came on the line. This is Dan. What can I do for you? I need to know why you canceled our contract, Ann said. We received evidence of fraudulent tow authorizations, Dan said. We do not work with clients who misuse our services. That evidence is fake, Ann said. We verified it with the city, Dan said. Your contract is terminated. We will not be returning. He hung up. Ann stood there, phone in hand, staring at the screen. It is over, Ann, I said. The tow scheme is done. The fees are getting refunded, and the management company is investigating you for fraud. She looked at me. You ruined my life. You ruined your own life, I said. You weaponized the HOA to harass people. You altered meeting minutes. You authorized illegal tows. You filed a fraudulent lawsuit. All I did was document it. Ann turned and walked away. She did not say anything else. I got back in my car and drove home. My hands were shaking again, but this time it was relief. The next week, the management company released its findings. Ann had violated multiple sections of the HOA bylaws, including abuse of authority, falsification of records, and retaliation against residents. She was removed from her role as communications director immediately. The board voted to ban her from holding any committee position for 5 years. The parking enforcement rules were rewritten to remove the visibility standard and the tow on-site policy. Guest parking was restored to normal overnight rules. And the management company issued a settlement that included refunds for all invalid fines and new limits on enforcement procedures. Miguel got his contractor van exemption, Claire got recognition for her advocacy work, and I got my life back. But the funny thing was, the management company auditor discovered something else during the investigation. The tow fee that Ann loved to threaten everyone with, the one she said was mandatory and non-negotiable, turned out to be imaginary. The HOA ledger had no record of any tow fees ever being collected or paid to the association. Ann had been using the threat of a fee to scare people into compliance, but the fee itself did not exist. When the auditor revealed that detail at the board meeting, you could hear people laughing. Ann had built her entire enforcement regime on a bluff. The HOA also canceled the vendor relationship tied to the abuse. Cascade Towing was officially blacklisted from working with any property managed by the same company, which meant Anne could not just move to another community and start the same scheme. And Anne lost her committee role immediately, with a 5-year ban on holding any leadership position. A month later, I ran into Anne at the grocery store. She was in the produce section picking through apples. She saw me and looked away. I walked over. "Hey, Anne." She did not respond. "I just wanted to say, your paperwork was cute," I said, "but mine had the receipts." She grabbed her cart and walked away. I finished my shopping and drove home. The streets inside Stonehaven looked different now. No more orange stickers. No more tow trucks circling the lots. No more portable folding sign stands blocking the sidewalk. Claire stopped by that evening. She brought a bottle of wine and a folder full of documents. "What is this?" I asked. "New HOA bylaws," she said. "The board is voting on them next week. We rewrote the enforcement section to require transparency, resident appeals, and third-party review before any tow authorization." "That is huge," I said. "It is," she said, "and it would not have happened if you had not fought back." We sat on my porch and drank the wine. The wind had died down and the evening was calm. My sibling was inside watching TV. My car was parked in my assigned spot, registration sticker visible in the corner of the windshield. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Miguel stopped by the next day. He wanted to thank me again for helping him keep his van. "You did not just help me," he said. "You helped everyone. Anne was terrorizing people. Now she is gone." "She is not gone," I said. "She still lives here." "Yeah, but she has no power," Miguel said. "That is what matters." He was right. Anne still lived in her townhouse, but she was invisible now. No more emails, no more enforcement walks, no more folding sign stands. She kept her head down and avoided everyone. The board meeting to vote on the new bylaws was packed. Almost every resident showed up. Claire presented the changes and walked everyone through the new enforcement rules. The vote was unanimous. After the meeting, the board president pulled me aside. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I should have stopped Anne months ago. I just did not realize how bad it had gotten." "You signed the tow authorizations," I said. "I know," he said. "I trusted her. That was a mistake." "It was," I said. He nodded. "The new bylaws will make sure it does not happen again." "I hope so," I said. A few weeks later, I got a check in the mail from Cascade Towing. It was a refund for the tow fee I never actually paid, plus an apology letter from the company. The letter said they were implementing new verification procedures to prevent fraudulent authorizations. Claire got a similar check. So did Miguel. So did a dozen other residents who had been hit with invalid fees over the past year. It was not about the money. It was about the principle. Anne had tried to use the tow system to control people, and she had lost. The final piece came a month later. The City of Bend sent a formal notice to the Stonehaven Community Association, stating that any future tow authorizations on public streets would be considered theft and would result in criminal charges. The HOA board acknowledged the notice and agreed to limit all enforcement to private lots only. That notice was the result of my original records request. The city had investigated and found that Anne had been authorizing tows on public streets for over a year in violation of city code. The investigation was still ongoing, but the notice made it clear the HOA could not weaponize towing anymore. I ran into Anne one more time after that. It was late afternoon and I was walking my sibling to a doctor's appointment. Anne was getting her mail at the community mailbox. She saw me and froze. I nodded at her. She did not nod back. We kept walking. My sibling asked, "Who was that?" "No one important," I said. Life in Stonehaven went back to normal. The parking rules were enforced fairly. The tow threats disappeared. The guest lot was always full, and no one worried about getting a sticker in the morning. Claire ran for a board position in the next election and won. She became the new communications director, which meant she controlled the emails and the policy announcements. The first thing she did was set up a resident feedback system so people could report problems without fear of retaliation. Miguel started a neighborhood watch group to keep an eye on enforcement and make sure no one else tried to pull what Anne had pulled. And I went back to my normal life. I worked my early mornings at the shop, took care of my sibling, and parked my car in my assigned spot without worrying about a tow truck showing up at dawn. The whole experience taught me something important. HOAs are not inherently bad. They are supposed to protect property values and maintain common areas. But when someone like Anne gets power, they can turn the system into a weapon. And when that happens, the only way to fight back is with documentation, patience, and a willingness to go public. Anne tried to control the narrative. She tried to use paperwork and authority to intimidate people into silence. But she did not count on someone keeping receipts. She did not count on the city letter. She did not count on the draft minutes. And she did not count on the residents standing together. In the end, that was what made the difference. It was not just me. It was Claire, Miguel, Lisa, the judge, the tow company supervisor, and every resident who showed up to the board meeting and voted for change. Anne is still living in Stonehaven, but she is powerless now. No position, no influence, no ability to send threatening emails or authorize tows. She is just another resident trying to keep her head down. And that is exactly where she belongs. I will bring you another story soon.